please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
The Nirav Modi scam numbed the nation by its sheer brazenness that a handful of individuals could dupe the banking system of 13,000 crore rupees over 7 years, sidestepping several layers of audits, shocked the nation. Not surprising, the government has acted swiftly to audit the auditors. On Thursday, it announced the setting up of the National Financial Reporting Authority, the NFRA, which will police the auditors. This body will recommend to the government accounting standards and policies that audit companies should follow and monitor, enforce these standards. World over, auditors were policing themselves like in India. But the self-regulation ended, for instance, in the US after Enron, and in many countries actually after the Lehman crisis. In India, the Institute of Chartered Accountants continued to insist on self-regulation, actually up until last week when the NFRA was announced by the government. But is this regulating body too little, too late, given that a parliamentary panel had proposed the setting up of such a regulator all the way back in 2009 in the aftermath of the Satyam scandal? In fact, a section of the Companies Act empowered the government to set up this regulator way back in 2013. Then why did the government wait until 2018 to make this move? Another question that keeps cropping up is the role of the ICAI, the Institute of Chartered Accountants, now that the NFRA will come into existence. To discuss all this and more, we are joined by Amarjit Chopra, former president of the ICAI, and Mr. Mohandas Pai, chairman of Manipal University, himself a chartered accountant. Later on in the show, we are going to be joined by Mr. P.R. Ramesh, the head of audit at Deloitte. Well, gentlemen, welcome. Let me first start with Mr. Amarjit. Mr. Amarjit Chopra, you know, the NFRA is here, and the general opinion is that it has come too late. Your own thoughts as a former ICAI president?
No, I will like to say the to my mind, probably it was not even required. No. The reason being that the auditors or the ICAI is being blamed for not being tough with the auditors. But on the other side, if you look at it, probably we are the only institute who have been taking action against the auditors. Because I will like to clarify one thing. Any delays in the past, barring 1 or 2 years in between, I don't want to get into the details thereof. Those delays have not been to our account. Those delays have been on to the account of basically the courts. Courts kept on granting stays in the case of Satyam and certain other matters. And the moment we could get the stays vacated, we have gone ahead and held the members guilty. I can tell you, between 98 to 2013 that I was in the council, at least there are 3 cases of the members where we have held them, were guilty and debarred them for the lifetime. So which other institute or which other body has actually done it? Whether it is Bar Council or it is valuers or it is rating agencies. No one else has actually done it except for the institute.
Mr. Chopra, there is only 3 cases in the history of the ICAI. That is very few cases of really serious action taken, isn't it?
No, I think this is a wrong perception. This is absolutely a wrong perception. Please get into, when I took over as the president, I got it hosted on the website of the institute. There were 123 cases, 3 in the last 3 years before that is between 2072 and 2010, where we had held the people guilty. 123 cases that I had hosted on the website of the institute. So it's wrong to presume that institute has not been acting.
Sir, one of that 123 cases, in most of the cases, all that the errant member got was a reprimand. How many cases can you count of serious penalties that the ICAI awarded?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think that is a wrong perception that people have got about the institute. And as I said, between 98 to 2013, 3 members debarred for lifetime. Show even a single case where it has happened in the other institutes.
Well, just because the other professions have done badly doesn't mean that the ICAI has done very well. Mr. Chopra, you know, this is not a very convincing reply.
No, but I'm not saying. I said very clearly and categorically, forget about 1 or 2 years in between, when probably there could have been laxity. But in general, believe me, even in the last year, I think the president has done very well so far as deciding the disciplinary cases is concerned. But also you must appreciate, it needs to be appreciated. When we deal with a disciplinary case, it is a matter of life and death for a member. So proper opportunity has to be given to the member. You can't just hold him guilty by issuing him show cause. That's all. So we have to allow him a proper opportunity. But look at the courts, the way the courts have been conducting. The courts have been giving stays after stays. In the case of Satyam, the courts kept on giving stays. But the moment I could get the stay vacated, in the next 3 to 6 months, the person was held guilty and debarred.
Okay, well, Mr. Chopra, do stay on. Let me get another opinion here. Mr. Mohandas Pai has joined us on the phone line. Mr. Pai, do you think the ICAI deserved to be sidestepped? Has it really been good at regulating its own ilk?
Well, my feeling is that the world has changed, whereas the ICAI has stood still. All around the world, for accounting professions and accounting bodies, regulators have come in for 2 or 3 different functions. One is standard setting, which has become global. And second is internal discipline and making sure that the standards of accounting of various business enterprises are done in a much better way independently. It started after the Asian financial crisis, then the global financial crisis, where people said very clearly that standard setting was not global enough and did not take care of the risk. And the accounting profession were called short, and also enterprises were not accounting properly. It required an external body like the PCAOB to come and inspect and look at documentation and pull them up in case of need. We also saw the Enron crisis, and we also saw that in the global financial crisis, many companies and banks go down because they didn't assess the risk and the accountant didn't assess the risk. So I think the world has changed. The model, the architecture that the ICAI has is the architecture of the 50s and 60s. They have resisted change. Government has played along. The government has been pushed into a corner, so you're going to have a regulator. Okay,
well, Mr. Pai, just hold on. Mr. Chopra, you know, let me take off from what Mr. Pai is saying. We've seen the quality of audits of the public companies accounting body of the US, the PCAOB. You will have to say that the quality of audits of the PCAOB are very thorough.
I will only like to know from you, show me a single case where PCAOB has unearthed any fraud. Single case. Even when Lehman Brothers happened, it happened. And those files had been examined by PCAOB already. It is not that they had not done it. You see, it is very easy in the hindsight.
Okay. Well, Mr. Pai, just react to that. The ICAI stand has been that even after setting up the PCAOB, a Lehman Brothers did happen. So is there any guarantee that scams won't happen again after the NFRA is set up?
There is no guarantee scams will not happen ever again in a capitalistic system. There is no guarantee that frauds will never happen again. There is no guarantee that audit can be 100% foolproof. There are no guarantees in the financial markets and in the capitalist system. We must understand that. But the key issue is, in case of scams, in case of anything going wrong, how does the system respond? How does the system keep the confidence of the investors and the confidence of the public? And the public need to have a body in which they can have confidence. And right now, globally, accounting bodies are in the back foot because all around the world, governments have come to understand that it requires independent bodies. I'm not sure whether the new body set up by the government is going to do the job, where they're going to find the talent, where they're going to find the people, whether they'll be captured by certain accounting firms, etc. These are all questions that we have to answer later. But the fact remains that society as a whole and the government and the system right now has lesser confidence in the ability of an auditor and they do not know what happens in case an auditor fails, and that's why they think this body will be a salvation. It's not a salvation, but I guess it will be a step forward.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chopra, you know, now there's no point debating on whether we should have said it earlier. Now the NFRA is here. How do you expect the turf to be shared between the ICAI and the NFRA?
The government is going to make it very clear that so far as the auditors of listed entities are concerned, and wherever there will be cases of gross negligence in respect of the listed entities or the entities beyond a threshold limit, they will be covered by NFRA, and the others will continue to be under the discipline mechanism of the institute. That turf is very clear. The only worry that I have got is, suppose I am auditing a branch of Punjab National Bank, which is the listed entity. Will I also be covered in this NFRA or not? Because to me, probably the government needs to do is that branches above a particular size, the auditors of branches above a particular size conducting a particular business should only be covered. Because if NFRA starts getting into each of the cases, the smallest of the small cases, then NFRA will be a non-starter. That I can assure you.
No, I agree with you on that, Mr. Chopra. In fact, actually, that was the question I was going to ask Mr. Pai as well. You know, Mr. Pai, regulators are multiplying. You know, we have the IBC, the insolvency courts. We have a host of, you know, the company law boards, which are now, of course, doubling up as NCLT courts. There is a real estate regulator, you know, electricity regulator. My point is, does the government have the bandwidth to find so many good professionals to man so many tribunals or regulators? Will it have the money? Will it have the talent? You know, so many benches are vacant, appellate authorities, both in the judicial system and in the tribunal system. Will the government have the ability to find the money and the ability to find so much talent?
See, Lata, my view is this. Government primarily has three kinds of functions which are getting mixed right now and is becoming a failure. One is policy setting, which is their role and which cannot be given to anybody else. Second is a provider of services, in which case, because the policy setting and they're managing it, they become a failure. Like you can see, as a provider of services to public sector banks, the government has been a failure. And every government will be a failure because you can't control the banks to run the way you want because you have no competency. And third, as a regulator. If you have all the three functions rolled into one, then you become a failure. Now, in the case of the stock market, the government said we will retain policy, which is very good, and we will have a regulator like SEBI, which will regulate the market, which has worked very, very well. And of course, we don't provide any services because there are no government-run stock markets. There'll be private stock markets. In the banking sector too, governments should decide banking policy for the country, which is their prerogative. They have a regulator in the Reserve Bank of India, but they must not be owners of the bank, because if you provide services like banking services, you should be liable for the same regulatory standards, which you are not because you are the owner. Now, if you are the sovereign and you are the owner, you cannot be regulated by another body. It becomes a conflict. So they must make sure there's a separation of government powers between policy setting, between the regulatory functions, and between a service provider. The same thing happens in education. The government is a policy maker, they're a regulator, and as a regulator, some of the worst universities are state universities because they don't provide anything, you're hardly able to do anything, and you beat up the private sector, and as a provider, you fail. So all the three things have to be kept apart, and you need a layer of people, regulators, and for that, you've got to source people. There are a lot of good people available, so you've got to put in a process to do that, and that becomes part of a job so that the government is unburdened of what it was doing earlier. Just like the institute has to be, institute has to be disaggregated, the government's work also has to be disaggregated.
Okay, well, we are getting into a larger terrain, you know, that the government should actually get out of providing services, which means really privatizing public sector banks. I mean, Mr. Mohandas Pai, Mr. Amarjit Chopra, thank you very much for giving rival perspectives that the Chartered Accountants body was trying to do its best, and Mr. Pai saying that, well, it stood still in time, and therefore the government has gone ahead and appointed this regulatory body, but it needs to staff them properly, staff them regularly, and not ensure that there is a whole flood of cases in front of the regulator and it gets overwhelmed. So how exactly should this regulatory body be constituted, and how do we ensure that it provides a good policing system for the auditor? All those questions when we return to Mr. P.R. Ramesh, the chairman, Deloitte India. He's joining us in a minute. Welcome back to our special show, Auditing Auditors, where we are discussing the new watchdog that the government is proposing to set up to police auditors, the NFRA. Joining me now is Mr. P.R. Ramesh, the chairman of Deloitte India. Mr. Ramesh, thank you very much for joining us. We've just had two gentlemen giving us opposite points of view. A former ICAI president saying that the ICAI was doing a good job, and Mr. Pai arguing that the time had come to police the auditors with an external body. Well, now that's history. The NFRA is set up. How do you think the NFRA should be staffed? Who should be the chairman? What should be their qualification so that there is no regulatory capture by the chartered accountants community?
Okay, let me begin by first saying that the core issue is audit quality. And the second principle, and whether you have NFRA or whether you have ICAI or whether you're dealing with punishments or delays in punishments, the whole core issue is audit quality. So when you're talking on the subject of NFRA, you're dealing with 5 different elements, which is there in the law. One is setting of accounting standards. Second is setting of auditing standards. Third is inspection of audit firms. And fourth is investigation, and fifth is punishment. Now, all of these 5 functions are already being done by ICAI.
Yes.
The key principle, perhaps, which is there internationally, and that is one of the things which, if an NFRA becomes operational, and that's exactly provided in the Companies Act, the key principle is independent oversight. And it is back again to what Nani Palkiwala said in 1986, who shaves the barber? So internationally, we have this International Forum of Independent Audit Regulators, IFIAR, where there is an independent regulator. And that's perhaps the genesis of NFRA. Okay. Having said that, therefore, NFRA, if the principle is independence, then the NFRA has to be independent of the profession it oversees.
Okay.
It therefore means...
So academics?
No, it needs to be headed by a person who's independent of the profession. Every member of NFRA, as the law provides already, has to be independent of the profession.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that the professional body or professionals should not be involved in providing the support to NFRA.
Okay. No, so therefore they cannot be practicing chartered accountants, or they should be people with a long period of service so that they don't need to serve again. How would you ensure this independence? How would you prevent regulatory capture?
Ensure that independence by having people who are not currently practicing joining the NFRA.
Okay.
You cannot be in NFRA and then be in practice.
Fair point, sir.
That is a very clear...
Okay. What would be the key takeaways from what is happening at the PCOAB or what is happening in the United Kingdom? What should be, say, the turf of the NFRA?
The PCAOB and the FRC, which is in the United Kingdom. If you look at what's happening there, the focus is primarily on the large firms.
Okay.
Because in those markets, the large firms have a very large share of the market, A. B, they are very large, in a way too big to fail.
Okay.
And C, they audit some of the largest public interest entities.
Okay.
And it's therefore important that there is an oversight on what they do and have early warning signals if there are deficiencies in audit quality.
Okay.
And they have inspected over the years audit firms. They're very, very intense, very exhaustive. And they have come up with reports identifying deficiencies of audit firms. And progressively over a period of time, it has enabled audit firms to enhance their audit quality significantly.
Okay. In India itself, therefore, do you think the government is right in only restricting the NFRA's ambit to listed companies above a certain size?
Yes, indeed, because we are concerned about audit failures. And audit failures of large entities will leave a devastating impact across the markets and erode credibility in general of the audit profession. And so, therefore, rightly, the focus has to be on the large. At some point in time, everybody should be subject to oversight, but today everybody is already subject to oversight.
Running out of time, Mr. Ramesh, do you see this regulator kind of crossing swords with, say, the Reserve Bank, say the SEBI, because you could be, regulating entities where the auditors are involved?
No, I don't see it, because that's not been the experience world over. Because they focus on the audit firms and what auditors do. Whereas the regulator is more focused on regulating the entities in their sector. And less on what the auditors themselves do.
That's a relief. Final question, do you think an appellate authority will be needed? How would this function, the NFRA?
Will be needed wherever there is punishment. You will need an appellate authority at that point.
And that would be what, the High Court, you think?
No, not necessarily. It could be an appellate authority created under these rules itself.
Well, we will have to see how things pan out. We haven't yet seen the setting up of the authority itself, so maybe it's too early to talk about appellate, but that will happen very soon. Mr. Ramesh, thank you very much for joining us and setting up giving us some idea of how the initial picture of India's NFRA may look like. With that, we wrap up this special show, Auditing Auditors. Thank you for watching. More news and updates follow.